Alright, this is my video for Module 5, Organizational Structures. I work for USD 386 Madison Virgil, a small rural school. So the organizational structure of my particular district was pretty easy to follow, or easy to find out, rather, and easy to put together. My flow chart looks as such. And as most school board or school districts do, they start with the school board. If I was to put anybody above the school board, their elected positions, you could possibly put the parents up here. But as far as the district goes, we start with our school board and the members that are on there. From the school board, we have our board office ladies, our board clerk and treasurer. The board clerk and treasurer, they handle contracts for teachers and other employees. They handle major purchases for the school district. They're kind of the jack of all trades there in the board office. From the school board, we move down to our superintendent. Superintendent of our school district is also the principal at the elementary school. So they serve a dual role there. The superintendent actually last year was our high school building principal, and we had an assistant principal / building principal at the elementary. So organizational structure is a little unorganized in our district. A lot of shared roles there, but we do have our superintendent. Handles all major budget concerns, manages both districts, both buildings, oversees all major purchases, and is kind of the liaison from the buildings to the school board and the other staff to the school board. From the superintendent, we move down into our, I guess you could call them different departments. And our different directors. So we'll start over here with the transportation director. That is a fairly new position. We do have a full-time transportation director who's in charge of managing bus schedules and van schedules, also in charge of managing bus drivers and finding drivers. The special education director, our SPED director, works for both buildings, is in charge of the special needs students in both buildings. In our high school building specifically, underneath her, we have our special education teacher. We just have one teacher who is then in charge of all of the paraprofessionals that work with all of our special needs students. And then in our high school, we have our principal, our building principal. We are back to just an actual building principal, not a shared role this year. So it's been nice. That's been a blessing to have someone who can manage our building specifically. That's been a blessing. The principal is in charge of all of these people: office staff, coaches, counselor, teachers, and our head custodian. So the office staff, our two front ladies, they kind of help us put in orders for different classroom type things. They help us manage, find substitute teachers, keep track of attendance records, help us keep track of grades, help manage student organization budgets, things like that. They're also jack of all trades. Underneath the principal, we have our coaches. We do have a few non-faculty coaches who obviously are in charge of our athletes whenever they're in season. We have our high school counselor who helps guide all of our students with their scholarships, helps them enroll in classes, things that typical high school guidance counselors do. We obviously have the teachers. We all know their responsibilities. All of our teachers, I shouldn't say all, but a majority of our teachers are in some form or fashion a sponsor for either a class sponsor or one of our student organizations. For example, as the ag teacher, I am the quote-unquote sponsor for the FFA organization or our FFA chapter. I was also the trap shooting coach, so there's some responsibilities there. And then over in our custodial department, we have a head custodian, and then underneath our head custodian, we have two just custodians that kind of trade off hours throughout the day and night. So a very simple, and then of course all of these individuals are, depending on the scenario, if they're the bus drivers, do have say over the students on the buses. The paras obviously help the special needs students. The coaches are in charge of their athletes, and then everyone else, office staff, counselor, teachers, custodians, they all have some sort of tie back to the students. So not a real complex organizational structure, very functional. I would call this, through my research, I would call this a functional organizational structure. There's a clear defined hierarchy of who people need to work through. Our district, in my experience, is far from perfect in their organizational structures, and after watching some of the other videos, it feels like there's some things that we could do as a district to kind of line some of this out here for ourselves. The biggest downside to that is there seems to be a lot of miscommunication from teachers to special needs directors, or the teachers to the transportation department. There's not a lot of clear defined ways for us to discuss things with these other departments. We have clear communication to our principal and fairly clear communication to our superintendent, but across different levels, we struggle a little bit there. Again, functional, everyone knows their roles, everyone knows who they should answer to, but as far as how these people interact on different levels with other departments, that could be improved. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and that's our district.